I was grading essays when my marriage ended. It was a Sunday morning in late September, the kind of morning where everything feels normal. Coffee cooling in my favorite mug, red pen in hand, classic rock playing low from the kitchen speaker. My wife Karen was at her weekly yoga class, or at least that's what I thought. My phone buzzed on the desk, a text from Karen's number. I picked it up without thinking, expecting her to ask me to grab milk on the way to nowhere. The message said, "God, I can't wait until we're done pretending. 3 more months tops. The old lady won't last past Christmas, and then we're free. Rob won't know what hit him." I read it twice, 3 times. My brain couldn't process the words. Wrong number? Some kind of joke I wasn't getting? Then the second text came through, and my stomach dropped into a cold black hole. "Shit, sorry, that was meant for Scott. Delete that." At that moment, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe she was planning a surprise party or joking about something I didn't understand. I didn't know my wife and my best friend had been planning to leave me the second my aunt died so they could split the inheritance. And I definitely didn't know that 3 months later, I'd be the one walking away with everything, while they got nothing but legal bills. But right then, sitting in my home office with a stack of sophomore essays about the Great Gatsby and a text message that rewrote my entire life, all I knew was this. The person I'd loved for 20 years had just called someone the old lady. My Aunt Eleanor, the woman who'd helped raise my father, who'd encouraged my writing when no one else did, who called me every Sunday just to talk about books and the ocean view from her porch. And my wife was counting down the days until she died. I opened our shared text thread. The messages looked normal. Grocery lists, dinner plans, love you, see you tonight. But I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before. Dozens of notifications that said message deleted. How many times had she said something to someone else and accidentally sent it to me? How long had I been the joke? My hands were shaking. I put down the phone, picked up my coffee, realized it was cold. The essay in front of me blurred. Something about Gatsby's green light, about longing for something you can't have. The irony wasn't lost on me. I needed to understand. I needed to see the truth. Karen and I shared passwords. She knew mine, I knew hers. It was a sign of trust we'd told each other. No secrets in a healthy marriage. I'd never once thought to check her phone, her laptop, her email. Why would I? We were solid. Everyone said so. I walked to the bedroom where her laptop sat on the dresser. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out, but my hands were steady as I opened it. Her desktop was neat, organized, folders labeled work, recipes, travel ideas, and one called Us. I clicked it. Inside was a Google Drive folder, shared between her email and Scott's. Inside that folder was a document titled After. I opened it. What I found was a budget, a timeline, a plan for a life that didn't include me. Estimated inheritance, $3 divorce settlement, 50%, 1.5 to 2 Maris. R probably won't even fight it. He'll be too sad. Plan, move to Oregon, buy house near coast, start fresh below that were text screenshots they'd saved, conversations between Karen and Scott about me. Scott, does he know you're with me right now? Karen, are you kidding? He's grading papers. He thinks I'm at book club. Scott, I almost feel bad. Karen, don't. He's had 20 years of me. It's our turn. Another one. Karen, God, sometimes I look at him and just think, this is my life? Scott, not for long, babe. Old lady's not going to make it to New Year's. There were photos. Karen and Scott at a hotel in Santa Barbara. The weekend she'd told me she was at a nursing conference, at his gym after hours. A selfie in his car with the caption, Future Mr. and Mrs. Parker. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat there, methodically screenshotting everything, saving it to a cloud folder only I could access. Teacher's habit. Document, organize, preserve evidence. The affair had been going on for 18 months. 18 months of yoga classes and book clubs and late shifts at the hospital. 18 months of me thinking I was lucky, thinking I'd found the right person, thinking that boring, steady love was enough. 18 months of being the punchline to their private joke. I heard Karen's car in the driveway. She was home early. I closed the laptop, walked back to my office, sat down at my desk. My body moved on autopilot while my brain screamed at me to confront her, to throw the laptop at the wall, to burn everything down. But I didn't, because in that moment, I made a choice. The door opened. Karen walked in, yoga mat under her arm, skin glowing, hair in a perfect ponytail. She looked beautiful. She looked like my wife. "Hey, babe! Good class!" She glanced at me, and her smile flickered. "You okay? You look pale." I had to decide right then. Confront her now. Let her lawyer up, warn Scott, hide assets, turn this into a war I might lose, or play dumb. Buy time. Protect myself. I thought about that document. R probably won't even fight it. He'll be too sad. They thought I was weak. They thought I was predictable. Maybe I could use that. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "Just rough essays. Kids can't write anymore." Karen laughed, walked over, kissed my forehead. "You care too much. That's why I love you." She headed to the shower. I sat there, her kiss still burning on my skin like a brand. She can lie to my face. She can kiss me and feel nothing. If she can wear a mask, so can I. I picked up my phone and searched. A state attorney near me. That evening, Aunt Eleanor called. She loved FaceTime despite being 78 years old. When her face appeared on my screen, I saw what Karen must have seen. The thinness, the tiredness, the way her skin seemed almost translucent in the afternoon light streaming through her windows. But I also saw what Karen never had. The sharpness in her eyes, the wry smile, the woman who'd taught me that quiet people notice everything. "How are you, kiddo?" she asked. "Good, Aunt El. You?" "Still here. Garden's doing well. Finished that Colson Whitehead novel you recommended. He's brilliant." We talked about books for a while, about my students, about the weather, normal things, safe things. Then she shifted, and I saw something in her expression change. "I talked to my attorney this week," she said, "about the estate plan." "Aunt El, you don't have to—" "Hush, I'm 78, Rob. I've had a good run, but let's not pretend I'm going to be here forever. The house is going to be yours." The house, the waterfront property in Santa Barbara she'd bought in 1985 for $80,000, now worth $3.5 million. The house where I'd spent summers as a kid, reading on the porch, listening to the waves. The house Karen had researched the value of 3 months ago, the night we found out about the inheritance. "I just want to make sure," Eleanor continued, her eyes searching my face through the screen, "that it goes to someone who'll appreciate it, not someone who'll just sell it for cash." My face must have done something because she caught it immediately. "What's wrong?" I thought about lying, but this was Eleanor. She'd taught me to read Whitman, to notice the spaces between words, to understand that truth mattered more than comfort. "I'm just thinking about the future," I said carefully, "making sure the legacy is protected." Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You worried about Karen?" The question hit me like a punch. "What?" "I've seen the way she looks at that house, honey. Like she's already measuring curtains. Is everything okay with you two?" I wanted to tell her everything, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not when I didn't have a plan, when I didn't know what I was doing. "I just want to make sure," I said slowly, "that if anything ever happened, the property would stay in the family." Eleanor's expression changed, not surprised, more like confirmed, like she'd suspected something, and I'd just proven her right. "Let me call my attorney," she said. "There are ways to structure these things, ways to protect what matters. I don't want to complicate—" "You didn't bring it up for no reason, Rob, and I didn't get to 78 by ignoring my instincts. Trust me on this." She paused, then added, "Come see me this weekend. We'll talk more." After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. Karen was in the bedroom, probably texting Scott, probably laughing about how clueless I was. But I wasn't clueless anymore. I was just patient. The law office of Gloria Chen was in a converted Victorian in downtown Santa Barbara. All dark wood and leather chairs, and walls lined with legal texts that probably cost more than my car. I'd taken a sick day from school, told Karen I had a stomach bug, needed to rest. Instead, I was learning how to protect myself. Gloria was in her 50s, gray-streaked black hair pulled back, sharp eyes behind designer glasses. She listened to my story without interrupting, her pen moving across a legal pad in quick, efficient strokes. "So, your aunt wants to leave you property," she summarized when I finished. "You're married, and you're worried about divorce." "Yes." "Do you have proof of infidelity?" I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshots. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her eyes narrow slightly as she read the timeline document, the mocking texts, the budget for Karen and Scott's new life. "This is comprehensive," she said. "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. "And she doesn't know you know?" "No." Gloria nodded slowly. "Smart. In California, inheritance is normally separate property, but only if it stays separate. If you put your wife's name on anything, commingle funds, use it for joint expenses, she can claim half. So I need to keep it completely separate. Even better, we structure it so she never has access in the first place." Gloria pulled out a fresh legal pad. "Here's what I'd recommend. A life estate trust." She explained it to me like I was one of her students, clear, methodical, leaving no room for confusion. The property would go into a trust before Eleanor died. I'd have lifetime use of it, could live there, rent it, manage it however I wanted. But upon my death, it would pass to designated remaindermen, future children if I had any, other family members, charity, the crucial part. As property held in trust, California's marital property laws worked differently. Karen wouldn't have automatic rights to it. Even better, Gloria said, Eleanor can include what's called a character clause. It excludes anyone from benefiting who has violated family trust or marital fidelity. I stared at her. "So, if I have proof of the affair, dated before the trust was created, then your wife would have a hell of a time arguing she deserves any of it." For the first time since I'd read that text message, I felt something other than numb shock or cold rage. I felt hope. Not hope for my marriage, that was dead. Had been dead for 18 months while I was too blind to see it. But hope that I wouldn't lose everything else too. "How soon can we do this?" I asked. "Your aunt needs to sign the documents while she's mentally competent." "How's her health?" "Declining. Her doctor said maybe 6 months." "Then we move fast." Gloria slid a folder across the desk. "These are private investigators, if you need more documentation." I took the folder, already knowing I'd use it, because Karen and Scott thought they were clever. They thought I was too boring, too trusting, too stupid to see what was right in front of me. They were about to find out how wrong they were. The next 3 weeks were the strangest of my life. At home, I was still Rob the high school English teacher, Rob the predictable husband, Rob who did the dishes and asked about Karen's day and laughed at her jokes. We had sex twice during those weeks. I initiated both times, maintaining the illusion of normalcy, and afterward I lay in the dark next to her, listening to her breathe, wondering if she was thinking about Scott. On Sundays, Scott came over for football like he'd been doing for 15 years. He brought wings and beer, shouted at the TV, clapped me on the back, and called me brother. I watched him hug Karen in the kitchen, a second too long, his hand too low on her back, and I smiled and handed him another beer. "You and Karen are relationship goals, man," he said during a commercial. "I'm still looking for what you have." "We're lucky," I said. "You already found it. You stole it." But I didn't say that. I just changed the subject. At night, while Karen slept beside me, I sat in my office with my laptop and documented everything. I tracked her yoga class schedule against Scott's gym hours. They matched perfectly. I went through our credit card statements, highlighted the charges for hotels I'd never stayed at, restaurants I'd never visited, gifts I'd never received. I pulled our phone records through the family plan and created a spreadsheet of all the times they'd called each other, hours of conversation, always when I was at work or at parent-teacher conferences. The affair had started 18 months ago, right after Scott's divorce. I put it all in a cloud folder labeled evidence. Each piece of proof was a nail in the coffin of our marriage, and I was building that coffin with the same methodical care I brought to my lesson plans. Then I found something that made everything worse. Karen had created a new shared document with Scott. This one was titled Timeline December. I opened it and felt my stomach turn to ice. December 1530. E passes. They'd abbreviated my aunt's name like she was a task to be checked off. January. Funeral, probate begins, R inherits. February. Property appraised, assets clear. March the 1st. K files for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences, no fault. March the June. Settlement negotiations, K gets 50% of property value, Quancepsvanstra. July, S and K close on Oregon house, start new life. At the bottom, a comment thread. Scott, think he'll be okay? Karen, he'll be sad for a while, but he's resilient. He'll find someone else eventually, someone who appreciates quiet. I read that last line 5 times. Someone who appreciates quiet. She made it sound like a favor, like she was doing me a kindness by leaving me for my best friend, by stealing half the inheritance from my dying aunt, by planning her exit down to the exact day. He'll be sad for a while. 20 years. 20 years of marriage, of building a life together, of me thinking we were partners. And she thought I'd be sad for a while. I printed the document. I don't know why. I had digital copies, had backups of backups, but I needed to hold it in my hands to see it in physical form. The paper felt obscene, like I was holding proof of my own stupidity. That night, Karen came home from work. She'd actually been at Scott's apartment. The private investigator I'd hired had photos. And she kissed me on the cheek and asked what I wanted for dinner. "Whatever you want," I said. She smiled. "You're so easy to please." Easy, that's what I was. Easy to fool, easy to manage, easy to leave. But not for much longer. Early December came fast and cold. Eleanor called me on a Saturday morning, her voice weaker than I'd ever heard it. "Rob, honey, can you come over? I don't feel well." I dropped everything and drove to Santa Barbara, my hands tight on the wheel. Karen had a shift at the hospital, so I went alone. When I got there, I found Eleanor on her couch, wrapped in blankets despite the California sunshine streaming through the windows. "I'm okay," she said when she saw my face. "Just tired. Old age is tiresome, you know." We talked for a while. She asked about school, about my writing, about Karen. I answered as honestly as I could without lying, which mostly meant I talked about school and avoided everything else. Then she said, "I talked to Gloria, the attorney. We can set up the trust this week. Aunt Elle, if you're not feeling well, we can wait." "Rob," her voice was firm despite its weakness, "I'm 78 years old and I've had a stroke. Let's not pretend this can wait. The trust ensures the house stays yours, no matter what happens." She paused, looked at me with those sharp eyes that had been seeing through people's bullshit for nearly 8 decades. "Where's Karen today? She used to come every time you visited." "She's working. She's always working when you visit me now." Eleanor reached for my hand. "You don't have to tell me what's happening, but I'm glad you're protecting yourself." I felt my throat tighten. "I wish I'd spent more time with you before all this. We've got time now. That's what matters." She squeezed my hand. "Besides, you're about to inherit a house you'll actually appreciate. That's better than most people get." The attorney arrived that afternoon with documents. Eleanor signed them with a steady hand, creating the Robert Harrison Life Estate Trust. The property was now held in trust, managed by me for my lifetime. Upon my death, it would pass to future children or other family members I designated. And there was the character clause, read aloud by the attorney in formal legal language, that basically meant, if you cheat on Rob, you get nothing. "There," Eleanor said when everything was signed. "Now you're safe." I hugged her carefully, afraid I might break her. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise me you'll stand up for yourself when the time comes." "I will." "Good. Because you're stronger than you think, Rob. Smarter too. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise." I left as the sun was setting, the trust documents in a folder on my passenger seat. As I pulled away from her house, my future house, I saw Karen's car in the parking lot of Scott's gym. She was supposed to be at work for another 3 hours. I drove home, made dinner for one, and waited. Eleanor died 2 weeks later. It was peaceful, the hospice nurse told me. She went to sleep and didn't wake up. I got the call at school during 4th period. I left my students with a substitute, drove to the hospital, and sat with her body for an hour, holding her cold hand and crying for the first time since I discovered the affair. Karen arrived 30 minutes later, mascara running down her face in perfect tracks. Later, I'd realized she'd applied it in the car, carefully placed the streaks to look natural. But in that moment, I just saw my wife, crying for the woman we'd both loved, except only one of us had actually loved her. Karen took Eleanor's other hand, whispered, "Thank you for everything." I knew what she was thanking her for. The funeral was small. I gave the eulogy, talked about Eleanor's love of books and the ocean, her sharp wit, her kindness. Karen stood beside me in her black dress, the supportive wife, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Scott was there too. He found me at the reception, pulled me into a hug. "I'm so sorry, man. She was a good person." "Yeah," I said. "She was. If you need anything, I know where to find you." He nodded, squeezed my shoulder, walked back to where Karen was standing with a group of Eleanor's friends. I watched them. They weren't touching, weren't even looking at each other. But there was something in the way they oriented themselves in the room, like planets in orbit, always aware of where the other was. 2 weeks after the funeral, Karen said, "Now we can start healing and planning." The will reading was scheduled for a Friday afternoon in late January. Rob, Karen, and Gloria Chen, though Karen didn't know Gloria was also Rob's attorney, gathered in the conference room with its view of the harbor. Gloria read through Eleanor's bequests in her calm, professional voice. $50,000 to the local library, personal effects divided among friends. And then, the waterfront property located at 1847 Seacliff Drive, Santa Barbara, is hereby transferred to the Robert Harrison Life Estate Trust, established October 2024. Karen's head snapped up. "What's a life estate trust?" Gloria explained without emotion. "The property is held in trust. Mr. Harrison has full use of it for his lifetime. Upon his death, it passes to the named remainder men." "But we're married." Karen's voice had an edge. "Don't I have rights to it?" As the property was placed in trust prior to Mrs. Eleanor Harrison's death, and Mr. Harrison is the sole trustee, California's standard marital property laws don't apply in the same way. But I can still... The trust also contains a character clause, Mrs. Harrison. I can provide you with the full documentation if you'd like to review it. Karen's face went carefully blank, but I saw the calculation behind her eyes. She thought she could fight this. She thought divorce would still get her half. "That's fine," Karen said, reaching for my hand. "It's still ours, right, babe?" "It's protected," I said, like Aunt Eleanor wanted. Karen smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. In the car on the way home, she said, "That was weird. Why would she structure it that way? She wanted to keep it in the family. We are family." I didn't answer, just kept driving. That night, I saw her texting Scott. "We need to talk. Something's wrong with the trust." Over the next 3 weeks, I watched them scramble. Through their texts, they still didn't know I had access. I saw their growing panic. "Karen, I looked it up. A life estate trust means I don't automatically get half." "Karen, maybe I can contest it?" Scott, "Babe, don't worry. He's not going to fight you. He loves you." Karen, "What if he knows?" Scott, "No way. He'd have said something." I forwarded every message to Gloria. Her response was brief. "When you're ready to move, let me know." "Not yet," I told her. "Let them think they're winning. Let them plan their escape. Let them believe I'm clueless." Then, on a cold morning in mid-February, Karen made her move. The night before, she was distant at dinner. I could see her rehearsing something, choosing words. I'd already read her emails to her lawyer, knew exactly what was coming. The next morning, she made coffee, handed me a cup with a smile that looked like it hurt. "We need to talk." "Okay." She sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten 1,000 meals, had 1,000 ordinary conversations. The winter light coming through the window made her look younger, softer. For a second, I saw the woman I'd married 20 years ago, and my heart broke all over again. "I love you, Rob. I always will." Her voice was steady, practiced. "But I'm not happy anymore. I haven't been for a while. I think we want different things." "Different things like what?" "You love teaching, your quiet life. I need more adventure, change." "Someone else?" She flinched. "No, God, no. This is about me, not—" "It's fine, Karen." I kept my voice gentle. "If you're not happy, you should go." The relief on her face was obvious. "You're okay with this? I want you to be happy." She slid an envelope across the table. "These are divorce papers. I'm filing today. It's no fault, clean, fair." I opened them slowly, even though I'd already read the PDF her lawyer had emailed her 3 days ago. Petition for dissolution of marriage. No fault grounds. Asset division to be negotiated. You're asking for 50% of the house value. It's only fair, Rob. We've been married 20 years. The house is in trust. My lawyer says that doesn't matter. It's still a marital asset. We'll work it out. I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman I'd loved, who I'd built a life with, who was sitting across from me with a practice speech and a lawyer on retainer, planning to take half of Eleanor's final gift to me. "Okay," I said. "I'll have my lawyer look at this." The relief on her face was almost insulting. Thank you for being mature about this." She kissed my forehead, that same gesture she'd been using for months. The patronizing little pat that said, "You're so simple, so manageable," and left for work. The second her car pulled out of the driveway, I called Gloria. She filed. "I'll have your counterfiling submitted within the hour. She'll be served tomorrow." "Do it." I knew exactly where Karen would be the next day at 2 p.m. Not at work. She'd switch shifts with another nurse to be free. She'd be at Scott's gym, in his office, probably celebrating their brilliant plan. The process server I'd hired was a retired cop named Mike who'd seen 1,000 divorces and wasn't impressed by any of them. He texted me at 2:07. Both parties served. The girlfriend threw her papers at me. The boyfriend just stood there with his mouth open. I sat in my classroom during 5th period, teaching the crucible to a room full of teenagers who had no idea their teacher's life was imploding, and my phone started buzzing with calls. Karen's number, Scott's number, Karen again. I let them all go to voicemail. At 3:30, Karen's voicemail was borderline hysterical. "What the hell is this? You're suing me? Call me back, now." Scott's was angry. "Dude, what the fuck? You're suing me? Call me." I waited until I was home, poured myself a drink I didn't want, and called Karen back. She answered on the first ring. "What the hell is this? You're suing me?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm suing you and Scott." "For what? We didn't do anything illegal. You planned to defraud me out of half my inheritance. That's illegal. You used my aunt's death as a financial opportunity. That's fraud. You've been having an affair for 18 months and mocking me in the text messages while planning your exit strategy. That's grounds for a fault divorce, an intentional infliction of emotional distress." Silence. Then, in a smaller voice, "You've been watching us?" "No, Karen. I've been protecting myself." "You can't prove—" "I have every text, every email, every Google Doc. I have photos of you at hotels. I have Scott's gym security footage. I have the timeline document where you planned out my aunt's death month by month like a project schedule. I have 18 months of evidence, and all of it is dated before you filed." The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. "How long have you known?" "Does it matter?" "Rob, I'm filing at fault divorce on grounds of adultery. The character clause in Eleanor's trust means you get nothing from the property, and I'm suing you and Scott jointly for emotional distress because you didn't just cheat on me. You mocked me. You used my dying aunt as a countdown timer. You planned to take half my inheritance and leave me with nothing but your pity." "That's not—" 18 months, Karen. You looked me in the eye for 18 months and lied. You kissed me goodnight while planning your escape. You visited my aunt's deathbed and took photos for memories you didn't care about. I heard her crying, but I couldn't stop. The worst part, I would have given you anything. If you'd been honest, if you'd said, "I'm unhappy, I want to leave," I would have let you go. I would have been fair, but you weren't honest. You made me think I was crazy for having doubts. You let me believe I was lucky while you and Scott counted down the days until Eleanor died. I'm sorry, so am I. I'm sorry I wasted 20 years on someone who saw me as a paycheck. I hung up. 10 minutes later, Scott called. I almost didn't answer, but I needed him to hear this too. "Dude, what the fuck?" His voice was more confused than angry. "You're suing me?" "You're my best friend, Scott. You were my best man. The godfather to the kids Karen and I never had. And you've been sleeping with my wife for 18 months. It's not like that. You're right, it's worse. You weren't just sleeping with her. You were planning to take her and my money. I have the documents. Timeline, December. Ring a bell? Jesus Christ. One more thing, that character clause in the trust. It means even if Karen gets anything in the divorce, which she won't, she can't touch the house. Ever. Neither can you. This is insane? No. What's insane is you two mocking me for being boring while planning to steal from me. What's insane is using my aunt's death as a business opportunity. That's insane. Rob, listen. We're done, Scott. You wanted my life? Congratulations. You get Karen in a lawsuit. I get the house and my dignity back. I hung up and turned off my phone. For the first time in 4 months, I felt like I could breathe. Karen showed up at the house that night. I heard her car, heard her key in the lock, heard her footsteps in the hall. She found me in the living room, sitting in the dark with a glass of bourbon I still hadn't touched. "Rob, please, can we talk?" "Okay." She sat on the edge of the couch, careful not to get too close. Her eyes were red, makeup gone. This time, the tears were real. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But suing me, Scott, you're trying to destroy us. No, Karen, you tried to destroy me. I'm just defending myself. It wasn't like that. Wasn't like what? I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots I'd been carrying around, like evidence at a crime scene. You didn't have an affair? You didn't plan to divorce me the second I got the inheritance? You didn't mock me in text to Scott, calling me boring, clueless. I read from the screen. God, sometimes I look at him and just think, this is my life? Karen stared at the phone like it was a snake. You read our texts? All of them? Every single one? Every joke about how stupid I was? Every plan for your future with Scott? Every calculation about how much money you'd get from my dying aunt's estate? I was angry. I didn't mean, yes, you did. You meant every word. You think I'm boring. You think I'm not enough. You think I'm too stupid to notice you were using me. I wasn't using you. I pulled out a printed copy of the timeline document, unfolded it, placed it on the coffee table between us. Timeline, December. E passes, R inherits, K files for divorce, K gets 50%. You had it planned to the day. She looked at it and couldn't find words. You didn't love me, Karen. You loved the idea of the money, and you know what the worst part is? She said nothing. I would have given you anything, if you'd been honest. If you'd said, I'm unhappy, I want to leave. I would have let you go. I would have been fair. But you weren't honest. You made me doubt myself. You kissed me goodnight while planning your exit. You used my aunt's death as a business opportunity. I loved Eleanor. Stop! My voice came out harder than I intended. You visited her because you thought it would help your case. You took photos at her deathbed. You saw her as a transaction, and when she had the nerve to protect me with a trust, you started Googling ways to break it. Karen broke down, sobbing into her hands. I was boring, I continued, quieter now. I was safe. I was easy to fool, but I was also loyal. I was there. I would have spent my life with you, and you threw that away for what? A gym owner with commitment issues? A man who'll do to you what he did to me? Scott loves me. Scott loves the idea of you, just like you love the idea of my money. When the money's gone, let's see how long he sticks around. She looked up at me, mascara streaking down her face. Can we work this out? Go to counseling? No, I filed at-fault divorce. I have proof. The only thing we're working out now is how little you're getting. Karen stood up slowly, like she'd aged 10 years and 10 minutes. She walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the knob. I'm sorry, Rob. I really am. So am I. I'm sorry I wasted 20 years on someone who saw me as a paycheck. She left. I sat in the dark for a long time, that untouched glass of bourbon getting warm in my hand. The house felt bigger somehow, emptier, but also cleaner, like a wound that had finally been exposed to air. The court date was in 6 weeks. The legal proceedings took 4 months, but the outcome was never in doubt. Karen's lawyer tried to argue that California was a no-fault state, that at-fault divorce was outdated, that my evidence was obtained improperly. But Gloria dismantled every argument with the calm precision of a surgeon. We had the texts, the timeline, the photos. We had proof of premeditation, of Karen's calculated planning around Eleanor's death, of 18 months of deliberate deception. The judge, a woman in her 60s who'd probably seen 1,000 divorces just like this one, reviewed the evidence with the expression of someone who'd stopped being surprised by human cruelty a long time ago. When she read the Timeline December document, her mouth tightened into a thin line. Mrs. Harrison, she said, looking at Karen over her reading glasses. Did you create this document? Your Honor, yes, but it wasn't. It's a timeline that treats the death of your husband's aunt as a business milestone. Is that correct? Karen's lawyer tried to object, but the judge held up her hand. I'm asking your client a direct question. Yes, Karen whispered. The ruling came down 3 weeks later. Divorce granted on at-fault grounds of adultery. Karen forfeited any claim to the trust property due to the character clause. Marital assets, what little we'd accumulated beyond the inheritance, were divided 60-40 in my favor as penalty for the infidelity. No spousal support, given Karen's nursing income and the short duration of the marriage post-affair. Karen was ordered to pay 30% of my legal fees. The civil case against Karen and Scott settled out of court. their joint liability for emotional distress, $75,000, split between them. Both signed NDAs prohibiting them from publicly disparaging me or discussing the details of the case. I sat in the courtroom as the judge read the final ruling, and I didn't feel victorious. Just tired. I'd won, but what had I won? I'd lost my wife, my best friend, 20 years of my life. Then I thought, no, they were already gone. I just finally saw it. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I moved into Eleanor's house permanently. I'd quit my teaching job. Too many questions, too much gossip, too many people who thought they knew what had happened and wanted to offer their opinions. I had enough money now that I didn't need to work if I didn't want to. The house was paid off, my expenses were minimal, and I'd started writing full-time. Freelance travel articles mostly, but also something bigger. A memoir maybe. Something about loss and betrayal and learning to see yourself clearly. The house was everything Eleanor had promised. The ocean view, the sound of waves at night, the smell of salt air in the morning. I set up my office in the room that used to be her library, surrounded by her books, and I wrote. Some mornings I'd wake up and forget for a second that I was divorced, that Karen was gone, that Scott was gone, that my entire life had been rewritten. Then I'd remember, and the knowledge would settle over me like a weight, but it got lighter each day. One morning in early June, I was on the deck with my coffee, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in shades of orange and pink, when I saw Scott in the parking lot of the beach below. He was running, his usual morning workout. He didn't see me, and I didn't call out to him. Later that day, I ran into him at the grocery store. We nearly collided turning down the same aisle, and for a second we just stood there, shopping baskets in hand, two men who used to be brothers and were now strangers. "Hey," he said finally. "Hey. How are you?" "Good. You?" "Yeah, good." He shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "Listen, it's fine, Scott. Let's just leave it." He nodded, relieved. We walked past each other, and I didn't look back. I don't hate him, I thought. I just don't care. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I'd deleted but still recognized, Karen. "I know I don't have the right to say this, but I'm sorry. You deserved better. I hope you're happy." I read it once, put the phone down, went back to watching the sunset. I didn't reply. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she was trying to ease her own guilt. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. A few weeks later, I was at the local bookstore, a used shop tucked into a side street that Eleanor had loved, when the woman behind the counter asked if I needed help finding anything. "Just browsing," I said. "Take your time. Let me know if you need anything." Her name was Emily, I learned later. 42, a librarian at the county library, recently divorced herself. She had Eleanor's love of books and a quiet sense of humor that made me laugh without trying too hard. We started talking about Whitman. I'd been looking for a first edition of Leaves of Grass to replace Eleanor's worn copy, and the conversation stretched from 10 minutes to an hour. She asked me to coffee the next week. I said yes. It wasn't serious yet. Maybe it wouldn't be. But it was nice, sitting across from someone who actually listened when I talked, who didn't look at me like I was a problem to be solved or a resource to be mined. Someone who, when I mentioned in passing that I used to teach, said, "That must have been rewarding," instead of, "Is that all?" One evening, a month into whatever we were doing, Emily and I were walking on the beach near my house, and she said, "You're not boring, you know." I stopped walking. "What?" "You mentioned once that your ex-wife thought you were boring. I just wanted you to know you're not." She said I was predictable, steady, too quiet. Then she didn't deserve you. Emily said it simply, like it was obvious, like it wasn't the nicest thing anyone had said to me in years. We kept walking. One Saturday afternoon, I was unpacking the last boxes from the old house, things I'd put in storage during the divorce, things I hadn't been ready to deal with. Clothes, books, random pieces of a life I didn't quite recognize anymore. At the bottom of one box, I found a shoebox labeled in Karen's handwriting, "Us." I sat on the floor of my new living room, Eleanor's living room, and opened it. Inside were photos. Our wedding, both of us so young it was almost funny. Me in a rented tux, Karen in a white dress her mother had helped her pick out. Both of us smiling like we knew something the rest of the world didn't. There were birthday cards, one from year 5. "To my boring, perfect husband, love you always." The word boring had been crossed out and replaced with steady. I'd forgotten that. A photo of the three of us, me, Karen, and Scott, at a beach bonfire maybe 10 years ago. Arms around each other, laughing at something off camera. We looked happy. We probably were happy that night. Our wedding vows, handwritten. Mine was simple. I promise to love you, support you, and make you laugh every day. Hers was longer, more poetic, full of promises about growing old together and never taking each other for granted. I sat with the box for a long time. Part of me wanted to burn it all, to take it out to the fireplace and watch 20 years turn to ash, to erase the evidence that I'd ever been that naive, that trusting, that wrong about someone. But another part of me knew it happened. It was real. The love had been real, even if the ending wasn't what I'd thought. I kept a few photos. The good memories were still good, even if the person in them wasn't who I thought she was. The wedding photo I looked at for a long time, then placed it in the bottom of the box, closed the lid, and carried it up to the attic. It happened, but it was over. On my desk, next to my laptop, was the last book Eleanor had given me. Leaves of Grass, worn and loved, with her handwriting on the inside cover. Rob, don't let anyone make you small. You're worth more than you know. Aunt L. I ran my fingers over the words, feeling the indent of her pen in the paper. She'd known. Maybe not the specifics, but she'd known something was wrong, and she'd given me the tools to protect myself, even if she never said it out loud. Early evening, I'm on the deck of the house that's now mine. The sun is setting over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that Eleanor used to call California gold. I have my laptop open, working on the memoir I've been writing for the past 6 months. I pause, look out at the water. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it, if I should have confronted them sooner, or just let them go quietly, or tried to save the marriage, if I was too cold, too calculating, too willing to watch them plan their escape while I planned mine. Here's what I learned. When people show you who they are, not just once, in anger, but consistently, in secret, in the choices they make when they think no one's watching, believe them. I spent 20 years being the safe choice, the reliable one, the boring husband. And I was okay with that. I like my life. I like teaching. I like quiet evenings at home. I like the simplicity of coffee in the morning and books at night. But to them, I was just an obstacle, a problem to be managed until they could remove me and take what they wanted. The thing is, they underestimated me. They thought patience meant weakness. They thought quiet meant stupid. They thought boring meant I'd roll over and accept whatever they decided to do to me. But I wasn't weak. I was just waiting for them to reveal themselves completely, waiting for the right moment to act, waiting for the trap they'd built around me to become a trap around them instead. And in the end, boring won. Boring and patient and careful and observant. Boring got the house, the peace, the life I actually wanted. Boring got to walk away with dignity and justice and the knowledge that I'd stood up for myself when it mattered. They got each other. And from what I hear, from friends we used to have in common, from the small town gossip that follows everyone eventually, that's not going so well. Turns out when you build a relationship on betrayal, it doesn't have a solid foundation. Turns out Scott's commitment issues didn't magically disappear just because Karen was willing to blow up her marriage for him. Turns out stealing someone else's life isn't the same as building your own. Maybe I am boring. Maybe I always was. But I'm boring in the house I love, with a life that's mine, surrounded by people who actually value me. I'm boring in the mornings with my coffee and my writing, boring in the evenings with Emily and our quiet conversations, boring in the way I've learned to be content with simplicity. And that's not boring at all. That's peace. I close my laptop. The sun has almost set, leaving just a strip of gold on the horizon. Somewhere in the house behind me, my phone is buzzing with a text, probably Emily asking if I want to get dinner. In the morning, I'll wake up to the sound of waves and write another chapter of the book that's slowly becoming the story of how I learned to see myself clearly. For now, I just sit here. I breathe in the salt air. I watch the last light fade from the sky. I think about Eleanor, who knew me better than I knew myself, who saw that Karen was measuring curtains and helped me build a wall Karen would never get through, who told me I was stronger than I thought and then gave me the chance to prove it. I think about the misdirected text that changed everything, How one moment of Karen's carelessness pulled back the curtain on 18 months of lies. How one emoji destroyed a marriage and probably saved my life. I think about Scott, who thought friendship was something you could discard when something better came along. And I think about Karen, who looked at a dying woman's estate and saw dollar signs, who looked at 20 years of marriage and saw an exit strategy, who looked at me and saw someone too boring to notice what was happening right in front of him. She was wrong. I noticed everything. I just chose the right moment to act on it. The stars are coming out now, one by one, scattered across the darkening sky like promises. The waves below sound like breathing, constant and patient. I'm 45 years old. I'm divorced. I lost 20 years and the people I thought would be in my life forever. But I'm sitting on the deck of a $3.5 million house that's completely mine. I'm writing the book I always meant to write. I'm building a life that's small and quiet and mine. Boring one. And you know what? I'll take it.